Hello and welcome to the Snap XMP overview. The intention of this webinar is really just to point you in the right direction as to where you might find features which you've previously been using in Snap Web Host, so features such as partial responses, adding participants and setting up email invitations and reminders. So it's just an opportunity to show you where features are rather than a how-to, so just to get you up and running with Snap Desktop and Snap Online. There is plenty of help and support available to you whenever you need it. We've also got plans of running further webinars in the coming months where we'll be covering today's topics in more detail. Now we don't have a massive amount of time today, so I'm going to take you straight into the software. So looking at Snap Desktop, you'll notice that it's very similar to Snap 11 in the sense that we have our survey overview. The key difference really is that we now have offline surveys and online surveys. Offline surveys is where you'll find all your existing surveys or your previously run surveys, and it's also where you'll find all our demonstration surveys. Online surveys is where you can synchronize your desktop surveys with Snap Online, and it's also where you'd be creating your new surveys. So anything that you do in Snap Desktop will automatically synchronize, and therefore surveys in both systems will always be up to date. Now before we get too deep into the new platform, I'm just going to show you how to move across your existing surveys from Snap 11 to Snap XMP. There are a few different scenarios of when you should and should not move those existing surveys across, and at the end I'm going to be pointing you off to a video which will take you through a few of those different scenarios. But today I've got an existing survey which I've archived off to my desktop, so the satisfaction survey. And the first step will be to restore that survey back into Snap Desktop. And we're going to restore that into an offline survey. So I've got the restore icon. I'll just browse off to that. And then to synchronize that with my online account, I'm going to clone that survey, this time as an online survey. You notice I haven't got the option to include the data, but I'm not going to worry about that today, so I will click OK. And today I'll just pop that in my main folder, Your Work. As you can see, it's synchronizing everything that we're doing with the online system. And whilst I'm here, I'm going to create a new folder just by right-clicking on Your Work and create a new folder. I'll just call that Demo Surveys. And just to show you how synchronized the platform is, I'm quickly going to log into Snap Online. And you'll notice that I've got the same folders and that same survey automatically in Snap Online for me. And at this stage I might take the satisfaction survey and drop it into that folder that I'd previously created. So that was just to show you how synchronized the two systems are. I'm now going to pop back into Snap Desktop. And if I refresh the screen, you notice that the survey has moved from outside the folder to back in the demos folder. Now, I'm not going to be spending the next sort of 10 minutes or so typing up a survey, but I did just want to create a brand new survey just to show you a few new features. So if I click on the single plus, and again I'm going to create that in my demo surveys folder. You can see the starting point for any survey is a template. So we provide you with a number of templates built into the software. We've got the blank template, a blank template with a Welsh edition. Depending on where you are in the world, depends on which editions you will have here. So if you're logging in from America, then you won't have the Welsh edition, you'll have a Spanish edition and also a French edition. And then you can see I've also got a scanning template there. And you'll notice that these editions automatically create a survey which is going to be suitable for a PC or a laptop, but also at the same time a tablet, a phone and also a paper edition. So there's no longer a need to set these up separately. Ideally though, rather than using the templates that we give you, you would actually go to create your own templates. So I've got a number of my own user templates here. Obviously you can see these are pulling in different logos, but they might also pull in your privacy statements, perhaps links off to your GDPR statements. Down the bottom you can see this one's going to pull in some demographic questions. So the idea is that your template will pull in all your branding as well as any sort of statements that you want to be pulled in automatically. But today I'm going to create a brand new survey just using the blank template, so one of the ones which is built into Snap, and I'll press next. And I'll just give my survey a name of Demo1, and again I'll create that in the Demo Surveys folder. And if I press OK, again you can see it's synchronizing with my Snap Online account. And with this being a blank template, it simply creates a placeholder for my logo, so I can double click on that to replace it. And you notice that we do give some recommended sizes or maximum sizes for your logos, so I'm not going to worry about replacing that, but I could replace that if I wanted to. You notice down the bottom it's automatically created the PC version, the tablet, phone and paper version, and obviously if I'd chosen one of the ones with languages it would have the different language editions down here as well. Just to point you in the direction of a couple of new question styles, if I drop down the style selector, down the bottom you notice we've got time and date. That will automatically obviously turn it into a date response question, but it will also turn on the data picker, so the respondent will have the option to manually type in the date, or they can click on the calendar and select it from there. Now, as I said, I'm not going to go any further and sort of type up any more questions, so for the time being I'm just going to save what I've done and close that survey down, which again will be synchronizing it with my Snap Online account. And at this stage I'm going to take you into Snap Online itself. And I'm just going to go back to the main screen. And again you can see my new survey that I've just created is sat there waiting for me. But for the time being I'm actually going to go into a survey I've already prepared called the in-crowd survey. You notice that I have a summary to do with the folder that I'm in, and if I go up a level I've got a summary for that whole little section. But if I go into the actual questionnaire itself, I then have a summary for that questionnaire. And we've got three main sections. We've got the Build, Collect and Analyze tabs here. And looking at the drop down at the top, we've got the option to rename the survey, delete or clone the survey. So much of the same functionality that you have in the desktop software. But moving back down to the tabs at the bottom, so Analyze stores all of Snap's default reports, so you can see there's three sat there waiting for you, as well as any of your own saved reports or individual tables and charts that have been previously created in Snap Desktop. The Build section allows you to start building your surveys using Snap Online. So if you're temporarily unable to access Snap Desktop, so perhaps you might be working from home or travelling, you can then make a start in Snap Online and then move back into Snap Desktop once you get back into the office to add in the more advanced functionality. If we look at the Collect tab, this is where we actually go ahead and start the survey. So if I publish the current version, there's a number of different options in here. You can see at the top we have the option to actually physically start the survey and make it go live. We've also got the option to download the PDF, so a copy of the paper survey, so just the same as you have in Snap Desktop. We've got the live URL, which if I click on the edit button at the end, we can change the end of that link to make it more memorable. There's the preview link, which you can copy and send off to colleagues or clients so they can test it. And we also provide you with a QR code giving easy access to your respondents, so they can simply point their phone at the QR code and it will launch the survey for them. At the top there's the option to start the survey now, or alternatively you can change the schedule. And so if you want your survey to go live on, let's say, the 21st of May, you can also now specify an actual start time. So I could start it at 9 AM and perhaps finish it on the 31st of May at perhaps 5 PM. Under change options, we have the option to run partial responses, so this will collect anyone's data who's given up halfway through, which is sometimes useful to work out where your problem areas are in your survey. And we've now got the option just to make this survey available for mobile interviewing using the Snap Offline Interviewer. That's the new Mobile Anywhere, where if you're doing any sort of face-to-face interviewing out on the street with sort of iPads or just mobile phones, then it's now one survey in Snap Online, rather than previously we used to have two surveys in Snap Web Post. On the left hand side we have a number of different options including participants. So it's now possible to upload your participants using Snap Online rather than just doing it via Snap Desktop. So simply just a case of browsing off to an Excel spreadsheet. Now rather than taking you through the steps to adding your participant list today when we're a little bit short of time, I'm actually going to cancel out of this survey and take you into a survey where I've already sort of made a start. So I'm going to take you into a new browser, and this is using a different account, so NP Training 9. And I've got the same survey or a very similar survey, the difference being that this survey is actually already live and we've already started collecting some data. So if we go into the survey, you can see that we've got 11 participants, 2 of which have already responded, and we've also got 2 people who've partially responded. If I take you into the Collect tab and down to Participants, you can see we have a nice overview telling you the completion rate, and if I go into my participant list, we can then look at all the different participants that I have for this survey, and some have partially completed it, some have completed it, and clearly some have not started at all. If I click on the arrow for one of my participants, I get to see what data is going to be seeded into the survey, and I can actually preview the questionnaire as if I was that person. I can also preview the invitation that's going to be sent out to them, and I can also edit the details which are going to be seeded into that respondent. If I go into the invitations, you can see I've already set up an invitation. We could add additional ones as well. If I edit that one, so this invitation will go out on day 0. Obviously I could increase that if I wanted to, and you might set the reminder perhaps to go out sort of 7 days later or something. If I go back to the overview, we have a number of options in here, including who is the email going to look like it's coming from. Do you want to potentially cut people off after so many days of receiving that email? And you've got also the option to remove participants. Moving back into the participant list, we can upload an additional spreadsheet, so we can add additional ones in or replace them. But you can also add additional individual people, so you don't have to upload a spreadsheet, you can literally just add an individual person one at a time. As I said, in this particular survey a couple of people have completed the survey and a couple of people have got halfway through and then given up. If we look at the responses down the side, we've now got the option to export into Excel, CSV or TSV, and we've got a couple of additional options, much the same as you have in Snap Desktop. So again, Snap Online and Snap Desktop are much more closely linked together. And if we look at partials, we now have the option to look at partial data even when the survey is still live. So I've got 2 people who've partially completed this survey. Person number 1 gave up after answering question 2, and if I look at the next partial, person number 2 gave up after answering question 4C. And you can see at the top we've got the options to submit that partial data, which basically means include that data in the pot with all the completed surveys as well. At this stage I'm going to pop back into my original account that we were looking at earlier, so back into my videos account. And another new feature which I just wanted to point you in the direction of was sharing. So using Snap Web Host, the older system, you may have all been using the same account. So if you had colleagues, you may have all been logging into the same account, or perhaps you had your own accounts, but it meant that any surveys in your own accounts were only visible in your own accounts. With Snap XMP, the idea is that everyone has their own username based on an email address, but you then might want to share some surveys across different colleagues and clients. So if I go back to my main sort of overview, you can see I've already got certain things shared here. So my templates folder has actually got a person on there. You can see down the bottom here, which means that that template folder is shared with whoever it's shared with. There's actually nothing in that folder at the moment. So you can share a folder. Equally, I might decide that I just want to share a particular survey. So if I go into my satisfaction survey, and we have the shares tab at the top, and we can add a new share. Again, it's all based on email addresses, so I'm going to share that with the training account which we were using just a few moments ago, and we have a number of different options of how you want to share that depending on who that person is. So analyst means that that person will have access to look at any tables and charts and reports that you might have produced. Additionally, you could give that person access to download the CSV or Excel data as well. If NP Training 9 was a colleague or client who was going to be going out on the street using the Snap Offline Interviewer app, so doing some sort of face-to-face interviewing, then I could set them up as an interviewer. Or if it was a colleague who needs full access to that survey, so access to the tables, charts and data, but also access to the actual questionnaire itself to make changes, then you would set them up as a researcher. So just to confirm, a researcher has full permissions just like you do. So if I click save, and if I go back to the summary, you can see that that survey now has 2 people on it, so you know that that survey is shared with someone. If I were to now go and look at the account that it's been shared with, if I refresh the screen, so this is the Training 9 account. You can see these are the 2 surveys which that person's actually created themselves, but if we look down the side, we have shared with you, and this account has had a number of different things shared with them. So Training Master has shared a number of different surveys and folders, but if we look at the videos account, which we've been mainly using today, you can see there's a survey, and I said this person was shared as a researcher, so this person now has full access to all the options. Okay, I am just going to go back into my original account though, so back into my videos account, and I'm going to go back into my in-crowd survey that we created earlier, back into collect, and I'm just going to actually start the interviewing for that survey, and I'm going to go ahead and actually complete a survey. So I'm going to go ahead and give a couple of replies to this survey. I'm not worrying too much about how I respond because actually we're not going to do anything with the data today. But it was really just to highlight a couple of additional features. So the navigational buttons at the bottom, they are CSS buttons now, which means that they have the option to transform as you sort of hover over them. If you're doing surveys in different languages, sort of French, Welsh, etc., then they will automatically translate for you. And of course your survey is set up to be adaptive to the different devices, phones, tablets, laptops, etc. These buttons will work perfectly well on all those different devices as well. Just a quick note with regards to the calendar, the data pickers. These are what's known as a native data picker, which basically just means they will look like they should look depending on what kind of device that you're using it. So if someone's got their Apple phone and they click on the calendar, then it will be the Apple calendar that pops up, as opposed to at the moment this is the Google Chrome calendar as opposed to the Edge calendar. So the idea being that if someone's filling this out on one of their own devices, it will look natural to them as opposed to being sort of the normal sort of snap calendar as such. So I'll go ahead and press submit, and if I take you back into the survey itself and just refresh the screen, you can see we've got 1 reply. And again, if I quickly take you back into the desktop software, you can see at the moment we have no data. If I refresh my screen, we now have the 1 case. So again, really just to highlight how synchronized the 2 systems are. So that's probably enough from me for the time being. As I said, this really was just a quick webinar just to point you in the right direction as to where you might find some of your functionality that you were previously using in Snap Web Host and Snap 11, so now Snap Online and Snap Desktop. As mentioned, we will be putting on some more detailed webinars on some of the sort of specific topics that we've sort of talked about today over the coming months, so do look out for those. There is plenty of support material out there. We've got a number of short videos on our support hub, including the one I mentioned earlier with regards to when or when not to upgrade your surveys from Snap 11 to Snap XMP, as well as a number of interactive tutorials and some more detailed worksheets based on the different elements to Snap XMP. So that just leaves me to say thank you for joining us today, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.